I just wanted to show you something actually that I just learned this year. It's about how important plant identification is. So that's an echinacea leaf. I can just usually recognize it by the leaf, definitely by the flower. People call them cone flowers, or the seed head. It's identifiable to me. Black walnuts in a bucket. Here's some more. And then this black walnut generally loses the leaves. It's one of the first trees to lose their leaves, one of the last trees to leaf out. So that's what it looks like. I can't really, here we go. Here's a leaf that, while discolored, is actually a good example of a leaf, how these leaflets, this whole thing is technically the leaf. These are leaflets, and they are in an opposite pattern right across from one another. And whoa, was that okay? So now I am going to pause the video, and you're not even going to know that the video is paused because, well, you won't. But before I do that and take you to where I want to show you, I want to show you an elderberry leaf, also with opposite leaves, and that's an elderberry. Oh. These are on the invasive species lists. Uh-oh. So these little guys look like they're drowning. Better save them. I didn't really figure on that happening. These are sumac, and I usually rip them out and throw them away every chance I get, but someone actually wanted some, so because he helped me with a big problem that I didn't even know I had, I just potted them up for him, and of course they're free. Normally I'd be like, yeah, you want them, come dig them out. But they've got the little hairs on the trunk there. The leaves are also opposite, so that would look very similar to the walnut I just showed you. These are sumac, and they are, I didn't take them off the runner. I pulled the runner up out of this unscreened topsoil that we bought, and it's been sitting here for a couple of years. So this sumac tree grew, and sumac spreads from runners. It makes a colony of clones. So again, here's the tree trunk, and it's furry. I guess they call that staghorn sumac because it's similar to a stag's horn when it's in velvet. But I used to confuse these leaves a lot with walnut, and my only way was to break them off, and walnut has a very distinct smell. And I always used to think, well, you can tell by the smell, because whether it's walnut, it's going to smell like walnut, and if it's sumac, it's going to smell like sumac. Well, a young gentleman came to buy some trees, I think pawpaws, and he wanted some sumac, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you got it everywhere, just go get it, you can have whatever you want. So we walked around, and I pulled out some sumac for him, and then he messaged me and said, hey, you know, I double checked, and I wasn't sure, because I had told him I can tell by the smell that it's sumac, and he said he wasn't sure, and he went home and he checked, and what I had given him was not sumac. what I had given him was a highly invasive tree called Queen of Heaven, which if you go on the invasive species, that's not mine. That's an abandoned property. So sorry. But anyway, he said that he was positive that what I had given him wasn't sumac, that it was Queen of Heaven. And like I was saying, that if you go on these sites, the invasive sites, they actually call it Queen of Hell. So all these years I thought these were sumac, and some of them are sumac. This is the obnoxious, I don't even know the real name, Queen of Heaven. I guess I'll call it Queen of Hell. But you can tell when it's next to a sumac because these leaves, which go from the trunk there all the way to the end, and those are leaflets, they're really super long, and when you crush them in your hands, they stink. They have a really nasty stench to them. So all this time I thought I knew sumac from walnut because of the smell. I never realized anything about this tree that was so invasive. And while sumac actually feeds the wildlife, this Queen of Heaven doesn't, and it takes over, and it spreads by seed pods, not runners, and it has a very distinctive seed pod that to me resembles a locust, unless I'm wrong about something else that I didn't know was wrong about. But so one of the big reasons for my video was that to let you know that indeed no one knows everything, and thank God for the internet, because you can actually look up invasive tree species for your own state, which I'm becoming now much more aware of the invasive species in southwestern Pennsylvania. I just saw that there's a white caterpillar that's an invasive species, and it's actually venomous, but you don't get a very bad reaction to it. Well, normally you don't. You don't die from it at all, but it's an invasive species. And when I watched this professor's lecture, he's like, "I'll just leave it alone." And I'm thinking, no, if it's an invasive species, I'm going to treat it as I do every other invasive species that I find, and it's going to die. So I'm going to stop here, but then I'm going to get back to my main reason for the video, which is the identification of the sumac, black walnut, and the infamous Queen of Heaven. See this big dead spot in the grass? I had all these potted and raspberries here, and I have to water them and prune them back, and we're going to plant about 50 of them at the other place. But because I had them here so long and the roots grew through the bottom of those pots, you can now see that I have all these little raspberry shoots coming up, because when I pulled the pots up, I either had to cut roots or I had to just pull them until they broke. And this one is large because he's been there for a while. But yeah, so those are the raspberries. And but now I'm going to get back to this Queen of Heaven thing. I could have done this video in a much better order, but I'm having some pains today. Walking is not a very fun thing for me right now. Well, walking's okay, actually. It's the bending part that the back screams about. So that's elderberry. And there's another elderberry popping up. So we're going to come along here. And the reason I decided to do this video is to tell you about the invasive species, but also to see if you can find the invasive species here. So a lot of people might look at that and say, okay, well, my echinaceas are sending up a shoot. Or they might say, oh, that's a black walnut. Or, oh, I have a sumac tree growing. But I now know that that's the notorious queen of heaven. And you take the leaf and just crinkle it. And if it has a stench that you would never, ever, ugh, it's bad, then it's the notorious queen of heaven. And you need to pull that sucker out and just let it die. It has no benefit at all. Now, if that were a sumac, more than likely it would have been on a running from somewhere else. But that's the notorious queen of heaven, and when they're young, they're kind of hard to tell apart. You can tell this one by the smell. It has a much smoother leaf, and it's just one of those things that you have to learn by doing. And I am so thankful to that young man who showed me right and wrong identification of what I assumed was sumac. And oh well, sumac stinks. I was not even aware of this plant, and that just shows me that I need to study a heck of a lot more to know the difference between, my plants, and not to make assumptions. And what if he hadn't known? I pulled up 3 of those trees for him, and what if he had not known the difference and planted them? What would we have? Oh, my bean broke open. Look at that. Whoops. My bean broke open. And right there it is. I put beans. I put a lot of things under these black walnuts. There's like 2 rows of them. I put a lot of things under these black walnuts because I want to see what will come back, what will survive, and what will actually thrive. Beans, yeah, black walnuts don't like beans, or beans don't like black walnuts, so that never even grew, and I had like 4 or 5 of them in here. There's another one down there. But yeah, so I was giving him these trees that I told him were sumac, and I was unintentionally spreading an invasive species of tree. And another tree that I didn't know was invasive is the huge Norway maple that I've had, it's right there, in my yard for years. It was here when I moved here in 1988. But look at that. Those oaks that I planted are just as big as the maple that's been here forever. But so I didn't realize that the Norway maple is an invasive species, and it actually takes over as well, and just like the Queen of Heaven crowds out the sumac that is beneficial to wildlife, the Norway maple crowds out our native sugar maple. So that tree, although it has been dying anyway, but I had saved some babies to maybe plant, and I'm just not going to do that, and I'm going to get some sugar maples and pot those up. And I'm shaking this walnut tree, and the walnuts are falling down. But yeah, so then I'm going to get some of those, and I'm going to be more aware of invasive species. It's like the mimosa tree. Mimosas are beautiful. Never knew they were invasive. But anyway, that's it, and thanks for watching another really long video, and this is just what I'm doing today. And tell me, what did you prep today? I learned, I hopefully taught a little bit. I'm picking up these black walnuts and remulching, and then I'm going to plant some more ginseng. So knowledge is prepping, and really? And that's it. Oh, by the way, we have a whole family of blue jays who love picking up and eating all of the acorns that fall from the oak trees over there. But that's crazy because they're uncomfortable to walk on, but they peck them, eat the insides, and leave the shells. And well, I'm always barefoot, so yeah, it hurts just a little bit more. But okay, yeah, I did say it was done, and I'm done. See y'all later.